And now I'd like to introduce our next panel session, which is going to be a dynamically connected future, the convergence of carrier Ethernet, SDN, cloud, and NFV. All the acronyms you've heard and wondering who's going to do them. I'd like to ask all of our panelists to come up on stage, if you would, please. I'll call them out. Scott Sulivan, who's a VP of Strategy for Carrier and Wholesale at Etisalat. Dan Liongson, who's a CTO at GBI. Muhammed Enver, who's the Director of International Carrier at DO. Mobs Khan, who's a Regional Director for MEA at BT. Ihab Ghattas, who's at Huawei. He's Assistant President. Karim El-Khazen, who's the Vice President of Business Development and Innovation at Deutsche Telekom. Welcome, everybody. We'll get your mics and start here in just a moment. Well, welcome, everyone, and thank you for being on the panel today. We appreciate your time. And this panel is going to be one that kind of explores some of the current, but some of the future issues in the carrier market, the wholesale market. And hopefully just kind of an open forum. I've got some questions, and I'll let you address them as you see appropriate in your respective areas there, and go forward from there. And maybe we'll just start right here and go down the line if we could, please. First question, can you tell us about the convergence of carrier Ethernet, SDN, cloud, and NFV, and how they deliver benefits to you as a carrier in the wholesale environment? Dan?
Yes. I guess I'll start with that. The convergence of these four technologies is one of the most exciting things we have seen lately. We believe it's going to bring some drastic changes in the industry. We even believe that unless the carriers do something about it, it could actually bring the next Bill Gates or the next Steve Jobs of the industry, because unless we do some drastic changes in the way we do business today, someone else will. Customers are driving the whole entire ecosystem at this point, and in order to benefit, for the carriers to benefit from this change, the actual DNA of the companies, especially the carriers at this point, should change. One of the main benefits is because of the ability of SDN and NFVs to actually run the network hotter, there will be some huge savings in CapEx. Because of operational efficiencies, there will be some huge savings as well on OpEx. And then more importantly, there will be more services as a result of this.
Okay, good. Scott?
I tend to agree. It's going to be customer driven. I mean, we're seeing it already. Next year, we're running multi-vendor trials on the domestic network. On the international network, certainly carrier Ethernet's on our roadmap. What we're seeing, particularly in the Smart Hub, we have about a dozen of the world's largest content providers and CDN networks. And they're demanding to bypass the router at this stage. They want to just plug 10 gigs straight into the server and manage that bandwidth on a dynamic level. Mm-hmm. Are we there yet? No, we're not close to there yet, but that is certainly where we want to be. And I tend to agree as well, it could become the driver, and I think the operative word is could become the driver for more automation, more efficiencies in terms of inter-carrier connectivity. Because Ali and others were saying, right, we're still spending 3 months to nail up an E1 between two countries, and the customers will probably find some way to go around us if we can't adapt to the speeds. And the only way doing that is going to be that type of technology, that type of standardization that's going to basically force us to be more efficient.
Right, good. Karim?
Yeah, we've been looking at certain markets where they have explored, our teams explored, all these new technologies, of having cloud-enabled, full IP-based networks. So in some of our European countries, we've been testing it, fully deploying it to being able to launch, IP-based services in a click, basically offering them to our customers. So that's being tested in some of the Eastern European countries, being tested, coming in certain of our German markets as well. So that's on the way.
Good, good.
Mohammed here. Yeah, I think there will be a convergence. That's inevitable. But I think the technologies are at different stages. SDNs, we've kind of, we're deploying them, the early stage of deployment, whereas when you talk about the NFVs, they're at really a discussion stage. I don't think we're, it's not on our roadmap yet. So
Right.
the benefits will come. Now, in terms of the benefits, there are probably three main benefits we're looking for. One is cost. Now, if you're going to move the intelligence away from the hardware, then it means anybody can deploy that hardware. So if you think about the analogy of, for example, PCs, you have the hardware, you have the operating system, then you have the software. Now, if anybody can produce the hardware, it's more competition. Similarly on the software operating level, software level. So for us, ultimately, we're looking for benefits from a cost perspective by the greater competition that will be available there, and also the flexibility. Now, by moving the intelligence away from the hardware devices, the routers, then it allows you to do quicker configuration. You don't have to go to all the devices, and quicker deployment of services as well. So there's benefits there that we see moving forward, and also scalability. If the control is more centrally, then it should allow you to add more and more boxes, the dumber boxes at the end, really. Right. So we are looking for a number of benefits, but it's at an early stage at the moment, and convergence, I think, is some time down.
Okay, thanks, Mohammed.
Yeah, absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. I think Mohammed's absolutely right. I think the convergence is inevitable, but we're in an infancy in terms of the collaboration. And when I say infancy, I think we're all got our own strategies, and we're probably all at different parts of the life cycle at the moment. Where we have seen some collaboration is on services where the network providers are providing the platform for cloud operators. The cloud providers ultimately put more burden on the network in order for enterprises to gain access to the services. So the network providers, number one, have to provide interoperability, and that is really the future of wholesale from our perspective. And second of all, have to provide flexible services, burstable type services. So that's where Ethernet Connect and those other services come into play. Having said that, there has been some services being launched within the region of late. One example is the Cloud Connect service that BT launched quite recently. But we all, as part of that ecosystem, rely on our strengths. So the network provider is providing access to the enterprise, for the enterprise, to a number of software as a service providers through the network. Okay, where's the value add from the network provider? It's by virtualizing things like security, like optimization, so you can gain access to those type of services much more quicker, much more seamless. As I say, it's in its infancy, but there's definitely a future for it.
Sure. Ihab?
Yeah, I think those core services, they are going to evolve on their own way, and the convergence will happen sooner or later. However, I'd like to look into these services convergence from a different perspective, whereby what do we make out of it at the end of the day? So unless and until we see that this is going to lead us to a much bigger picture, like digital society or like smart cities, then it will be very difficult for any of these services to evolve or even merge or converge with other services, because each and every one of them is a domain on its own, and there is a lot of people working in each and every one. But unless and until there is a bigger picture, we look at it, whereby all these services come together to create a much bigger goal for the society, it would be very difficult to see them maturing enough in the society or in the area we are in. If you look at Western societies, you will find that they have moved much more steps than what we are here, and the services are being provided and it's being used in a much bigger scale, especially the cloud services. And this is yet to be seen in the area we are in here, because I don't think we have the vision of the bigger picture as yet, which is a lot spoken about in the other stream in regard to smart cities and the digital society and so on and so forth.
Right. Good. So how do you see the wholesale market delivering on more M2M type products to enhance connectivity for people out there? Dan, you want to start here?
Yep.
We'll move down the line again.
Either way, yeah. Well, because of IPv6
Right.
and what it will do to the industry in general, when you have even the light bulbs, perhaps, that will have its own IP address, there's only one thing is a given, and that is explosive growth in bandwidth. But this has to be bandwidth that is not dumb. It has to be smart. We have to empower the customers to actually even do their own provisioning. And ultimately, that is what is being achieved with SDN and NFVs. We have mentioned earlier, my colleague earlier mentioned about how we have transformed ourselves to something different from what we started. We are actively pursuing revenue sharing. You do not have to utilize only your own infrastructure by sharing it with others and doing a revenue share, establishing NNIs with as many other parties as possible. This is what will bring about change, and that will enable you to handle this future growth.
Right, right. So do you see revenue share as pushing forward on more earlier, or hopefully earlier adoption of some of those technologies?
I think so. Perhaps revenue sharing is maybe a little bit easier to adopt, whereas with the new technology, as you know, SDN and NFVs, a lot of people still don't understand, as was mentioned earlier, how it's going to become. Right. Yes, there's a lot of trials. We have seen some pretty amazing demonstrations from some suppliers where you could actually empower a customer, give them an iPad, and through an app, they can actually do their own provisioning any time of day, bandwidth from any city to any city. I know it's all demos, but this is the way of the future. So yes, it's easier to change some of the commercial models which we have implemented. But I think technology also has a good answer for these changes, and I think it's a good enabler.
Good, good. Scott, what do you see at that slide?
Well, M2M is a very big space for us. We've made a lot of bets on M2M, and at a global level, right, there's going to be a multitude of networks trying to work together to support these services seamlessly. If we look, for example, at some of the enablers are going to be large pipe services like Ethernet, et cetera, but we're also going to see LTE roaming services for advanced LTE networks, and that's going to be on the back of IPX services or IPX networks that are going to allow that seamless quality of service guaranteed, et cetera, to allow those mission-critical networks to talk to each other. I think as well, though, as you're saying, it should be customer configurable. Right. And it's actually kind of amazing that we're not there yet, that it's still in the demo phase. With M2M, though, we're also going to see regional regulatory issues pop up in terms of who's actually owns the customer. And that's where some of these revenue sharing models are going to get kind of interesting and probably a little bit more complex than we think.
Yeah, I could see that. Karim, what do you think from your perspective?
Yes,
DT?
stressing as well the point of Scott's. I mean, we have been putting a lot of effort on the M2M in general. I mean, in terms of competence centers, in terms of developing the scale solutions related to that. I mean, the basic enablers of connectivity, data roaming, LTE roaming. I mean, that's key enablers to working on. I mean, the latest announcement related to M2M was creating this joint venture in China with China Mobile. I mean, becoming sort of telematics. I mean, a player in this space and putting a lot of efforts to create more and more M2M services.
Good. And so, did I hear you right? You just signed that, or?
Yeah, it has been end of October, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Good. Mohammed?
Yeah, I think there's, as well as the technology challenges, I think there's also some commercial challenges which we need to think about as carriers. I think, as Scott mentioned, the models. For example, if someone wants to, they've got a transport company that's going across GCC, then if it's using a data roaming SIM, then you've got different tariffs and things like that. So it can be quite, challenging to launch that kind of service. So I think the commercial models need to be reviewed and maybe look at how we treat different types of applications and maybe charge based on that. For example, I've got a Kindle, and with the Kindle I can go to the Amazon shop and I can purchase stuff there, and I don't pay for that data that's picked up by the Kindle device. So I think the way we need to look at different models. So for example, let's say Uber, take Uber as an example. If I'm going and booking a taxi, people don't want to turn on their device, right, because of the high roaming charges. So maybe a different model would be to get the application provider to pay so the customer doesn't pay because they benefit from the revenue. So I think there's some interesting challenges and opportunities in terms of how these services are looked at and how their prices to enable to allow them to grow to a higher level.
Sure, sure. Babs?
Yeah, certainly. I think the first two things I would say is, firstly, M2M has been more of an enterprise play than a carrier play up to date, and been less driven by the operators, except for we've heard some developments today about operators trying to get into that field. The second thing is that it's quite fragmented. And the reason why it's quite fragmented is that it's quite vertical based, depending on what you're going to use M2M for. Give you an example, is it going to be used for utility smart metering? Is it going to be used for connected car or automotive? Is it going to be used for smart vending and supply chain? All of those have different vertical applications for different markets, and it's difficult to find common ground on those things for the carriers to get involved in. The things that are common, though, are, as Scott said, you need ubiquity of service, connectivity, reach, the availability of those type of services. And I think what we need to do, if we're going to evolve this on into something that the carriers can get involved in, is really moving the ecosystem on. Let me give you an example, connected car. If you look at the automotive providers trying to get into M2M and telematics, is a BMW or a Mercedes of the world wanting to become an MVNO by putting a SIM in the car? Yeah? Is mobile and putting a SIM in the car the only game in town? It probably isn't. You know, you've got to look at MVNOs, you've got to look at small cell providers, you've got to look at other type of municipality type services. So I think the carrier as part of an ecosystem, which includes the vertical application provider, maybe an OTT, the actual vertical industry, need to come together in order to make this work.
Sure, sure. Ihab, how about at Huawei?
Yeah, it's actually very interesting to hear from the previous speaker, because if you were listening to our president presentation in the morning, the protocols controlling M2M for the time being in the market, they are not coming from our industry. And Huawei vision is that we are going to produce these protocols embedded in our systems in the next couple of years. And that's going to open a completely new era for the operators to get involved into that domain, which is going to be huge. We keep talking about connecting people to people, but also we keep talking about people to things and things to things. So right. M2M is part of that. And once the operators get involved in that domain, I think the scope will be much, much more bigger and much more enlarged than what we are thinking or considering for the time being. So we see a big future in that area, and Huawei Vision is really supporting that concept, but in a more of standard and rational way than the fragmented approach which is being adopted now.
Okay. So Ihab, from your perspective, Huawei's perspective, looking at that, you're involved, I assume, in a lot of R&D associated with that. I assume in working with a lot of different carriers on standards and such. Do you get involved with carriers all over the world doing that kind of thing? Or?
We, to some extent, yes, but as I said, that the effort now is fragmented. Now we are trying to take the lead by providing something we can, not only us, but everybody else, start building on top of it.
Right.
We believe that the operator have got a much better chance to get involved in this domain, rather than just being a fragmented effort related to the enterprise. And once the operator get involved with, I think we will see a much better environment for the concept to evolve.
Right.
There is no limit, actually, of what you call it M2M. I mean, it's the sky is the limit, really. So it's all up to the innovation and the thinking of each and every operator and the society to make use of the concept the best to suit the citizen of the society.
Sure. Good, good. Next question, how can carriers' infrastructure transform to enable more wholesale cloud and mobile services? I realize that's an open question there, but it's really meant to kind of pick your brain about what you're doing and some of the new things that you're trying to bring out to the marketplace. And Dan, what do you think of GBI?
Yeah, well, I think as mentioned earlier by my colleague, the transformation is never ending. I heard something in the morning that's a little bit scary. When you hear that perhaps Netflix and the Amazons of the world can start selling bandwidth, maybe, you know, unless we do something about it. So the only given is to transform. Similar to metamorphosis of a butterfly from egg to caterpillar to butterfly. and there has to be some drastic changes in the views, in the thinking, in the way of doing business, in the way technology and how it's going to be used in the future. And these are the ones that we are looking at the moment. We have been fortunate enough to be live for the last system for the last 2 years.
Sure.
There's more entrants in the market, such as Mina, and we would like to continue innovating, and that's the only way that you can survive. When you have all these OTTs being a threat,
right.
we have to transform. And hopefully with the new technology, that's why we're so excited about SDN and NFVs, where you separate the data layer from the control layer. These are the technologies that will make a difference, and we want to capitalize on that. We want to monetize what we have, and together with some of the commercial models mentioned earlier, together we have to make a difference and be around for a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
Good thoughts, Dan. Scott, how about over at Etisalat?
Trying to remember the original question.
Original question. How can the carrier's infrastructure transform to enable more wholesale cloud and mobile services?
Well, I think there's some fundamentals that you need to have right. I mean, we have the advantage in that we're not an independent wholesale operator. We're not an independent cable system. We're an integrated operator.
Right.
Right? So we spend most of our efforts supporting our retail operations in terms of their businesses. If we look at services, cloud as a service, we offer our own in conjunction with Pacific Controls. We'll be making other announcements in terms of cloud offering, et cetera. And we're also beginning to see other players look at the region and beginning to set up. What does that mean? It's going to drive more demand for reliable bandwidth, reliable infrastructure, and that's partly our Smart Hub has been sort of our foundation to support those types of services. It started off with the content providers, with what we term, because of the NDA, the world's largest video and search provider.
Right.
Starts with a G. To support their regional networks, Yahoo, Microsoft. Now all these guys are merging into the cloud space as well. And of course we're going to have to support what they do. So we established Smart Hub as basically the foundation. I like to think of it like a Swiss Army knife, where it has to be almost platform agnostic, but it has to be incredibly robust in terms of your basic fundamental infrastructure. Lots of reliable networks attaching to it. And what we've discovered is, well, guess what? The more content we have in the Smart Hub, the more cable systems want to come to us, the more ISPs want to come to us, the more mobile operators want to come to us. And the more of those folks that come in, then the more content providers want to come in.
Sure.
And we've just seen that type of growth in those types of services. It's been incredible, the growth we've had in the last couple of years in that area. And what typically happens, if you look at, for example, the content providers, the cloud service providers, et cetera, usually they start off in North America, then they go to Europe, then they go to Asia, and eventually somebody says, well, gee, we got to do something in the Middle East.
Right.
And then they come knocking on our door and say, what can you do for us? And then they look around the region saying, well, we got to establish a hub in the region somewhere. And usually they look at the UAE for all the good reasons, beyond, of course, our wonderful infrastructure,
right.
but all the other great things that the UAE has to offer. And this is where they establish their business. Now, as long as the carriers are open to partnerships, right, because we're not going to do it all ourselves. As you were saying on the M2M space, I mean, we've tied up with Jasper Wireless and others like everybody else for M2M, et cetera. But it's going to be about how quickly we can partner, monetize those partnerships, and ensure that everybody's getting, their fair share of the revenue within those partnerships.
Right. Okay, good. Karim at Deutsche Telekom.
Yeah, it's all about working, similarly, with partners, making it happen on the different segment, on the consumer, on the B2B, on the wholesale. It's all about finding the right partnerships to make evolve our infrastructure, finding the right services and solutions for the different segments. We're also working, we're like with Netflix now in Germany also. So there are ways to work out models with different partners, cloud-based services. Directly on my business, we're offering, OTT services, cloud-based services on a global scale. By working with the right partners, being able to package services and offering them on the wholesale market. So it's all about finding the right model, the right business models, the right segment, which is requiring this kind of cloud-based services.
Good, good. Muhammad?
Yeah, again, I think adding to what was said previously, I think it's kind of data center. I mean, we have a data center called Data Mina, which is the do kind of center. So it's quite important, I think, to, if they're cloud services, for example, from a carrier perspective, bring your cloud closer to your customer. So that will improve the service and the experience you get. Get more developers to come and put their applications, develop them more locally for local markets and things like that. So the more you can develop an ecosystem, then that will help that further. So it's creating the right environment in the ecosystem and doing as much as you can within the local geography, I think, is important as well.
Good. Abs?
I think what's inherent in your question is transformation in the carrier industry, and what that means is innovation. In my opinion, and it's an humble opinion, because I'm probably only 7 or 8 years into the wholesale space, is that there hasn't been enough innovation in the carrier space. What do I mean by that? I think a number of operators, especially the global ones, have been quite happy to try to maximize the profit out of sunk costs in networks and try to get the most out of TDM type networks. They've lagged behind trying to move it into the IP world. And it's the IP world that's going to allow you to cross over between the IT industry and the telco industry. However, that's changing. And the one area of clear innovation in the marketplace is something that Scott touched upon, which was IPX. Why do I say that? Because obviously it provides voice over IP platforms. It provides the opportunity for legacy and new operators to interact, with all the kind of translating, transcoding, transrating between them. But the key thing is that it allows mobile and fixed providers to also interact in a very collaborative way. So I think that's the first thing. I think all the value-add services that go onto IPX are also market-changing in terms of LTE roaming, Wi-Fi roaming, and I think that you'll see the small cell space interact more with the mobile space. There's always been a little bit of inertia between mobile operators to offload data into the small space. I think that needs to move on in order to make it better for the end user. And I think in the cloud space, so I think there needs to be better offload strategies from a mobile network provider. Maybe less so in this region because the networks are new and there's huge bandwidth in them, but more so in networks which are more legacy in other regions. And then finally, I think you see more in the cloud space, but there needs to be more to be done in the cloud space. And that's where your initial question comes in place, because in order for the cloud and network place to come into play, the middleware operators need to be much more prevalent in order to make the applications and the network join up a lot better. And so that's why I say it's in its infancy, but it needs to kind of move on.
Sure. Ihab?
It's an interesting point because I think the transformation, it has two aspects of it. One is related to the network and the physical part of it. But I think, and this is easy, that can be done. It just needs a little bit of money and intention, and it can be done. But what is more difficult is the culture within each and every operator. That's very difficult to change. People are living in a certain way for the last maybe 50 years or 60 years, and they're thinking the same thing over and over and over and again. You cannot switch them over overnight. That's next to impossible. I used to work for operators quite a long time before joining Huawei, and I know how difficult it is to change the culture. So I think this is a difficult bit of it. However, having said that, one of the most important issues in this transformation is, first of all, to ensure your base is correct. And the base here is the connectivity, so which means basically that you have to build a proper connectivity everywhere, and that involves fixed network, mobile network. Once that is done, the next step is to start looking into the application which you can build on top of this infrastructure. Alongside, of course, changing the culture, slowly you can evolve and you can move and start looking into start thinking actually out of the box, because keep thinking on the same way, it will never work with the operator. I mean, there is no way on earth with this OTT hammering them right, left, and center that they will survive if they do not think differently and have a different approach to the new but old problems. Eroding revenues, OTTs are eating their cakes, and so on and so forth. So I don't think there is an easy way out of it. It has to be gradual, it has to be smooth, and it has to be systematic, starting from the pillar of the network, going upward, alongside changing the culture inside the company. Otherwise, there's no way on earth that will succeed, in my opinion. And obviously, once you reach to that stage, then all these new services can evolve, like the cloud, like the SDN, like the network function virtualization, and so on and so forth. But it's not that simple.
You made a very good point about the culture at different companies. Every company's different. But I'm curious, and this is kind of a sidebar question, but how does one go about changing your company culture? I mean, you can be transformative and bring in new management. You can move people to different job responsibilities. The folks at GBI are a relatively new company, so it sounds like they've actually implemented a newer culture there. But there are different ways to do it. I'm curious if you've ever thought of different ways.
No, you see, in one of the other conferences, we were talking about new services, gaming and interactive gaming and so on and so forth. And one of the questions came up, who should you employ to tackle these services?
Right.
Now, obviously, people will go for an experienced chief marketing officer who is maybe 40, 45 years, maybe older, and ask him to deal with Facebook and Twitter. It doesn't work.
Right.
So if you want to change culture, you have to bring the people who can change the culture. So employ people who can handle these new applications. Nothing wrong of employing somebody at the age of 26, 27 to become chief marketing officer who can handle the issues related to Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and so on and so forth. I mean, all the big Facebook and all is run by someone who is below 30.
Right.
So
right.
I do not see why we should not employ people at that age to handle this generation. This is the generation which is creating all this mess in the network by creating a lot of data, a lot of upstreaming and downstreaming and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, we are giving somebody who doesn't understand the culture and ask him to deal with it. It doesn't work. As simple as that.
Yeah, very good point. Very good point. In the wholesale market for M2M and the other Internet of Things applications, how can the carriers assure quality of service and quality of experience for their customers that are out there? I mean, what do you think, Dan, from GBI's perspective?
Yeah, well, from GBI's perspective, one of the things that we're proud of is when we have deployed our operational support systems, it was not an afterthought. And I think it should be that way. Between the OSS and the BSS, this was implemented together while we were building the system. However, in this particular case, this OSS in particular will have huge challenges because whereas before, when network elements are purpose-built and they're utilized for whatever the function was made for them, and now when you make everything virtualized within a cloud, and it makes their job a lot more complicated. You're going to have to worry about SDN and the servers and all the virtual infrastructure that they now have to monitor. At the end of the day, not only should they be worried about quality of service, but also quality of experience, and I would like to call it quality of customer experience, right, because this is not, it's quite subjective. It's complicated to measure. A lot of times when you compare specifications, for example, of an automobile, some specifications of some particular models stick out. But at the end of the day, you take a car like a Miata. The perception is it's a much better car because people love it. So this is the kind of mentality that the OSS and BSS have to develop. Perhaps it's not as tangible at the moment, but in order for the customer experience to be properly measured and properly adjusted accordingly so that customers are happier, this is what it will take to make a difference. It is a huge challenge, but they've been doing it for the longest time. Same as the transformation the carriers, like ourselves, are going through. They have to do the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Good, good. Scott, what do you think?
Well, I think that's one of the areas where carriers are, at the technical level and at the infrastructure level, it's one of the things that carriers are very good at,
right,
is ensuring that there's a good quality of service. The issue, as we know, is the speed of establishing that quality of service sometimes. And back to what you're saying, the customer experience, which is a little less measurable to a certain extent. If we look at the tools that we have great infrastructure. You have an IPX platform, which is supposed to ensure QoS between mobile operators, between operators, which should provide that type of QoS at a technical level. Then we get down to the customer experience level, and that's something where I think the wholesale operators as a community need to do a much better job. And just simply in terms of, and this has been belabored all session, but effectively we have to be able to do it faster, we have to do it in an automated fashion, the bandwidth has to become dynamically allocated by the customer, and that's going to require a whole other layer of technology and a whole other way of thinking in terms of how we work together.
Good, good. Karim.
Yeah, we're enabling different quality of services in our different networks. I mean, what is key is at the end the end user's experience and the way it's perceived by the end users. And this is where a lot of focus and prioritization is put on that. I mean, on a corporate level, that it's not only about the technology leadership, because I mean we can do it. I mean technically, but it's really about always providing the best customer experience. So this quality of experience is really a fundamental priority at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Good, good.
Can stress that.
Mohammed?
Yeah, I think there's some challenges in the mobile world. In the fixed world, it's very, very quality of service. Controlling it is very, very kind of established. I think in the mobile world, I think a lot of more work is required at the LTE level, so the inter-operator level, so that when for example, if you have an application critical thing like Mabs talked about connected car. They all, if there's a critical application, for example, BMW have an application where if you have an accident, a message is sent goes to the police or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I think health, again, if you think about the way MTM would develop and other things, health will become important. So these become more and more critical for applications. So inter-operator, I think there's more work that's required at the standards level, LTE roaming, and how the profiles can be set and things. So I think there's some challenges there and work needs to be done at the interoperator level. So that's
good.
I'm going to echo the thoughts of all my colleagues. I think they've covered most of the main salient points, but I would say a couple of things. I think the first thing is quality of experience is obviously quite subjective, as we've already talked about. We're pretty good as network operators at quality of service because it's measurable. Availability, 5 nines or plus, and the rest of it. But in order to do quality of experience right, you have to understand the end user. And that's where the network operator hasn't been as good, okay, except for in the mobile world. Right. Okay, but in the fixed world, probably less so, because it's understanding the end consumer or the end enterprise who's going to actually use the service. And in order for us to do better in quality of experience, we really need to understand those business models better in order to be able to serve the business drivers of that organization. And so I think the one organization, it's related but isn't quite a network operator, is obviously Apple. Apple probably are the ones that have really made quality of experience a reality in the marketplace, because they were, what they look at, they didn't look at the highest processor speed or the best screen in the world, technically, which is measurable. They actually looked at quality of experience to the end user. Is it stable? Is it easy to use? Is it easy to download applications? Is it easy to interact? And they've made that their mantra going forward. So I think we could learn a lot from that, but it really requires understanding the end business model.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a very difficult question to answer, to tell you the truth. We have been living so far into the TDM domain, which is a very closed environment. And within the closed environment, you can control the ins and outs. It's very easy to work to improve the quality of service or quality of experience. However, once you start opening the platform to the IP and you get third party involved, it's next to impossible to have a proper measurement as to ascertain the quality of experience.
Right.
Example, you are accessing Facebook and the server of Facebook is down. Who are you going to blame it? The Salat or Do or Facebook? You don't know as a customer. Right. You just have the service down, as simple as that. And at the end of the day, you are blaming your service provider, which he has nothing to do with it because at the other end, the server is down. So I think it's a very complex situation now with the opening of the platforms to that extent. And we have to, it has to go through various stages. One of them is customer education. You have to educate the customer as to what he should expect from the service provider and the other end of the chain, which is the application provider. This is number one. And number two, some sort of dialogue must be initiated between the big players like Facebook, Twitter, and the operators in a way to be able to find some sort of a systematic way to ensure the quality of experience for the end user. It's for their benefit as much as for the benefit for the operator as well. But without that, it's next to impossible. You can come up to a proper situation whereby you can ensure the quality of service or quality of experience to the end user.
Right, right.
Yeah, can I just add that I think that point is really important. You know, I think we've heard a lot of today's conference and other conferences about the threat of the OTT and the rest of it. In order to have end-to-end quality of experience, there needs to be collaboration in that point.
Right.
Absolutely. It was fine when it was best effort services and when it was free and it was best effort OTT. Now they need quality of service, and we need to be able to support them properly. So
Right.
there needs to be now some collaboration. And some of the new age services enable the support of the OTTs, but I think we've got to come to a dialogue and come to a collaboration that is mutually beneficial. So I totally agree with your point.
And I agree with you quite a bit. And you know, all along today we've heard about some standardization on interconnection, automation of the processes, things of that nature. I also heard someone, I forgot who had done it, someone gave an example this morning of some people that do software provisioning, and they'll come out and they'll do a new revision every week. Whereas typically, and I'm underscore typically, in the carrier marketplace, you know, people are used to the 5 nines concept, and you want to make sure that you're providing that quality of experience that's out there. But you guys hit on the head a minute ago. Now that you have all these other players out there, the end user doesn't know where the problem lies. You may have a 5.9 network, you know, who the app provider, whoever that may be, does not necessarily have that.
This is part of the culture change.
Right.
All the sessions we have been hearing in the morning, it indicated that there is a tag war between operators and the OTTs.
Right.
This has to, I mean, they cannot survive without each other. Together they create an ecosystem, and together they create the best benefit for the end user. Now, the question is how much they should collaborate and how much they could compete.
Right.
But once they strike that balance and they start that dialogue going on between both of them, I think they will reach a situation whereby it becomes a win-win situation. If there is no infrastructure, there is no application. As simple as that.
True.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, please. Sorry. Go ahead.
no, all what I'm trying to say is to be able to reach a situation as comfortable as what we used to have in the TDM. We have to learn how to speak to each other.
All right.
Operators to OTT, to vendors, to end user, and create a dialogue whereby everybody is happy with what's going on. But this fragmented issues and everyone is threatening everyone else with the revenue and this and
Right.
that, I don't think this is a working model at all.
But you're right in terms of who you blame, right? I mean, is it YouTube buffering because of my device? Is it buffering because of Google? Is it buffering because of the carrier? Honestly, I think the average customer, I'm not necessarily sure they're blaming the carrier. I don't know who they're blaming anymore.
No, I mean, I wouldn't rather go to the word of blaming, because you see,
Well, that's
most
what
of
they
the
do.
application you have on the market now, which are being used by the younger generation, they have a different mentality than ours. We are too old for them. Reality, we have to face it. So unless and until we come to a common ground of understanding, it will be always clashing. And at the end of the day, clashing means both will be losing. None will be winning. It's a generation gap. I mean, I'm sure each and every one of us has got a son or a daughter, and he feels that generation gap. And this is exactly what's happening in the industry. The applications are being provided and dealt with and wanted by a much younger generation, that those are running the networks and the carrier and the operator and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and unfortunately, if I look at my 20-year-old son as the example, he also believes every service should be free.
Well, they are free because you're paying for them.
Don't pay for movies, don't pay for software, don't pay for connectivity.
Dan, you had
No,
something?
I was just going to add that one of the pitfalls of this collaboration is exactly this issue,
Right.
where you do not know what exactly is the problem.
Right.
But as was mentioned, education is key. But I don't think carriers, in general, has a choice. It's unfortunate that in the past, demand has not moved as fast as the technology. When you have 100G lambdas and bandwidth became a commodity, you have to find a way to differentiate yourself from the competition.
Right.
One way is to continue to compete on price. At the end, no one makes money. So the key really is collaboration and establishing these alliances and partnerships, revenue sharing. Yes, we're going to have these types of problems, but it's a better problem to have than,
But
the
I
other
think
way.
it's also back to the customer experience, right? Because everybody has the same access to the same technology. Everybody has access to the same price points that they want because the cost structures are almost identical. So unless you accept, of course, scale. But so eventually it's going to be the customer experience that's going to make the difference. The only competitive difference, really, between any operator.
Yeah.
Karim, what do you think on that?
Yeah, it's leveraging on that. It's just a way of packaging OTT services, or combining OTT services with your own offering as an operator. And this is where, the service is the same at the end, but it's the way you package it or the way you present it to the customer. Any value-add service you can provide to provide a better user experience with this OTT service would be a differentiator compared to others.
Right. Good. Muhammad, any closing remarks?
No, I think collaboration is key, but coming up with the right win-win, commercial models is probably the key thing.
Good. Good. Well, I want to thank all of the panelists here today. Please give them a round of applause here. We appreciate all your insights. Thank you very much.
Thank you.